Most people talk about leadership like it's theory. I've lived it in the mud, the chaos, and the moments nobody writes about. This show is the truth, raw, unfiltered, and built for leaders who actually give a damn. If you're ready to grow, ready to own your own story, and ready to lead from the front, you're in the right place. Speak up, show up, lead. Let's get into it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Speak Up, Show Up, Lead. I'm your host, JJ Hardy, and I'm here with Jon Cole. But before we get started with our conversation, I want to make sure, just like I'll say at the end, make sure you go to Amazon and check out Speak Up, Show Up, Lead. This is my book. It's my story of leadership lessons that I've learned throughout my life, and I've been told by a few people that it actually helps them out of a real low spot. So if that's something that interests you, go to Amazon.com, Speak Up, Show Up, Lead. Jon, how you doing today, buddy?
No, good, man. How about yourself?
Man, I'm doing wonderful. I get to be here to have a conversation with you and share another great person doing great things out in the community. So I'm really excited to get into this conversation. So if you wouldn't mind, to get us kicked off here, you want to tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Jon Cole, retired Marine, Chief Warrant Officer 2. I ended up only doing 16 years in the Marine Corps. I did get to retire, an early retirement due to some medical stuff, went through a med board process, kind of that whole ordeal. I was fortunate enough to where I had enough time in service to where I actually got to do terror or temporary early retirement. And so that got approved, and And so kind of leading up to that, going through back issues, nerve issues, really just kind of going through that process and then figuring out what I was going to do afterwards, and kind of give me a little bit of background real quick too, just kind of what I did when I was in the Marine Corps. I did kind of IT and network security for the most part. Came in 2006. I was 21 when I came in the Marine Corps. And I didn't think I was going to be doing IT, to be quite honest. That was not my first choice when I joined. I actually wanted to do something a little more gung ho, if you would, with my military career. But the cards kind of fell in their place, I guess, if you would, in based off of some recruiter tactics. If there's any recruiters out there listening, you guys probably can let me know if I'm right or not on my assumptions here. But with some recruiter tactics and stuff, when I went down to depth, and went to everything, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we can't give you artillery because you didn't take geometry in high school," and like all this other jazz. And I was like, "Well, okay, well, like, what about like field MP?" They're like, "Oh no, you can't do that either." I'm like, "Well, okay, well, what can I do?" And then one of the, like, you can be like a refrigerator mechanic. I was like, yeah, I really don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to work on AC units. I'm good with that. Well, what about a warehouse clerk? I was like, nah, man, I've worked in a warehouse before, third shift. Ain't you trying to do that again either? And I was like, well, what other options are there? Like, well, data systems. I was like, what does that mean? And they didn't know. All they just knew had to do something with computers. And I was like, you know what? Like, in 2006, computers were starting to become a bigger thing. The internet was becoming a bigger thing. And I was like, you know what? Like, at least this will give me something that I can at least transition into if I decide to do my 4 years and get out. At least it gives me something I can look forward to on the outside.
Right.
16 years later, I retired as a Chief Warrant Officer 2, planning large scale networks and kind of tactical data centers and stuff. And so, yeah. With that transition, I kind of started thinking about, what do I want to do afterwards? Not just necessarily like professionally and like my career goals, but like, what do I want to do personally also? One of the things I did decide to do while I was still active duty is I started my podcast, the Bunkhouse. And when I originally started the Bunkhouse, I brought veterans on to kind of share their journey and like give their story and their in IT or cybersecurity, whether that's what they did while they were in the military or if they transitioned and got into it after the fact. kind of give them the opportunity to kind of give some tricks of the trade, give some advice around transitioning after service, um, how to get into the career, kind of give that kind of stuff. And then every now and again, we may talk about some mental health here and there if it came up. The most of the time in the beginning, the only time we really talked about mental health was when we're talking about like career burnout or like just being burnout from work, being overworked all the time, and especially in that career field, it happens a lot. Um, and then that lasted for, so yeah, I started that around 2022 ish, early 2022. So 2021, 2022, roughly. And then my last episode, I released was back in early 2023. I am currently in the process of relaunching this spring. I'll kind of go a bit into that here in a minute, but when I took my hiatus, I had just started thinking about shifting and kind of doing a second session. And I called them sessions instead of seasons because I was going to be doing them both in concert, kind of in line with each other. I only did one episode a month when I was doing the IT pieces. And I was like, you know what? I think I could do a second episode a month. And this second episode each month will be focused strictly on veterans and mental health and then just life after service, right? Um, I got one episode done, got it released of that session, and my own personal stuff started kind of going a little downhill. I won't get into too much detail around that, but started going through my own trials and tribulations, so to speak, and wasn't in a great spot. And I kind of had to step back, look at myself in the mirror, and really start putting some priorities in order. What did I want to focus on? And so the podcast kind of took a back seat, really. And then over the last couple of years, I've been working on myself, working on other areas of my life, and growing my faith as well. So that's been a big piece of my growth into this year, is growing my faith. And probably around this past summer, so summer 2025, I really started thinking about, I was like, you know what? I really want to get the Bunkhouse back out there. I want to start doing a podcast again. And with this relaunch, I'm really focusing and honing in on only veterans and mental health and life after service. So really talking about, hey, what are the things that you learn from your time in the military, good or bad, right? Because there are good and bad things that we take from our time in service. And then how did that affect us in our daily lives, especially post-military? Because I think that's when it shows up for us the most, is once we get out, we get away from the brother and sisterhood of those like-minded folks around us, and that support that we had that we didn't realize we even had. We took it for granted. I know I took it for granted. And taking that and then allowing them to kind of share things that's helped them along the way. And really just letting people know that it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to talk about it,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, man. It's what's interesting is when we get out of the military, at one point or another, I won't say all, but I will say most of us go into a spiral, and it's because everything is different. But with that spiral, most people, not all, because obviously there are some statistics out there that mean people go in the opposite direction, but most of us either get comfortable with it, or we grow out of it. And the ones that stay comfortable with it or go in the opposite direction, I know it's true because I've talked to people about it. They seem to think that the mindset that they get after they left the military is unique and that nobody else is going through that stuff, and it's just not true. So many of us empathize with that because we went through it as well.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think one of the biggest things, at least I would, and I have a feeling it's probably the same with all generation of whether it be Marine, soldier, sailor, airman, whatever. Like, at least in the time of war, we grew up to where talking about issues within mental health, you got a stigma put around you. You were labeled as being weak or whatever the case may be. And so You just didn't talk about it. Nobody talked about it. You didn't grieve properly. If at all, when things would happen, and I think that stigma or that kind of mindset sticks with us, even if we don't realize it,
Yeah.
because like that was one of the things. And I think you said it right too, is like we don't realize it until after we get out, and like after our time in service is complete. Like I said, I started my show originally when I was still active duty, and then I retired at the end of May, beginning of June of 2022. And then shortly after that, that's when kind of my downhill approach into 2023 kind of started happening. And I, I started kind of losing a sense of purpose or really understanding what I was supposed to be. I'd been a Marine my entire adult life, right? Up until that point. Like I
Mhm.
didn't know anything else. Like that's who I was. Um, and it's it's a hard transition going from, especially when it's not necessarily a voluntary transition, right? Like in a lot of cases is like with mine, it wasn't voluntary. Like I didn't have a choice. Um, I was I got to kind of choose how I got out, but I didn't get to choose when I got out. It just
No.
kind of was that choice was made for me, and I just had to figure it out, and there's not a lot of resources out there that help. And for the ones that have transitioned out, like the like TRS or transitional readiness or TAPS used to be called back in the day, like they're okay, but they don't really set you up for success on the outside. Like they really don't.
No.
Um,
No. And there are programs, John, but I mean, I think people are trying to perfect a way to do it after we get out. And I think that, to be honest with you, this is my personal opinion, and you can tell me whether you agree or not. But I think that once we're already separated from the military, it's not too late, but it's kind of too late. And I mean, they got to prepare us for that before they throw us to the wolves, because when we're without the income, well, then that's something we've never really had to experience, except for, especially people that served 10, 12, 15, 20, 30 years in the military. I mean, we actually, even people that only served like 2 or 3 or 5. I mean, if we went straight from high school to serving, and then now you get an allowance for housing, or you live in the barracks, or you live in on-post housing, and you never see that extra money that you get for housing. And then you get paid extra money for food. You get paid extra money for. I mean, you don't really have much to worry about. I mean, the military makes it so that your life is almost on autopilot, and all the resources are there for you while you're in. But the one resource that they fail at, you're right, is getting you ready for not having that stuff. They don't actually teach you very well that your income drops significantly. Your base pay is not what you need to be looking for. You need to be looking for what you were making with all those extra benefits. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to sustain your lifestyle. Going to ACS when you need help is not going to work anymore. Or I guess I don't know what it's called in the Marine Corps, but it's Army Community Service, where you can get a debt relief loan or something like that. And it's really, really easy. It's almost always guaranteed to be approved, and they can set up an allotment until it's paid off. It's really, really easy. But those resources are harder to find when you're out, and they don't do a very good job at pointing you to those resources, asking you where you're going so they can connect you with local resources. They just don't. They're trying. I mean, you can't fault them for trying, but they're missing the mark by like most of the way.
No, you're absolutely right. And the Marine Corps does have the same kind of resource when you're active duty. It's the Navy and Marine Corps Relief Society is what we call it.
Okay.
So yeah, same thing, but you're right. It's super easy. Go in, get that interest-free loan. They again, the same thing. They take an allotment so you can pay it back without even seeing the money. But I mean, you're right too. Like you don't realize how much money it actually takes to be sick, like to live an everyday, just normal, not even extravagant, just a normal get through the time life, right? Like you said, you get BAH for housing, you get your basic allowance for substance for food, or if you're single and live in the barracks, you get your meal card where you go to the chow hall and you still don't pay. You just go get food.
Yep.
You know? So yeah, I mean, and I mean, on top of that, I mean, medical and dental benefits for you and your family. Like that was probably the biggest eye opener once I got out. And again, I'm very fortunate in my situation to where I actually did get to retire. And with that, I did get the benefits of is same as if I had went to 20 years. So I do get to have TRICARE for me and my family. But at the same token, like there's a lot of us out there that don't get that opportunity.
No.
And medical insurance is ridiculous these days. Like it's like, I don't know. They don't do a good job at those things. It's the small things that really add up once you get out that you take for granted. At least I know I took those things for granted because again, you start getting out, you go through those transition programs and they teach you how to write a resume, kind of. They teach you how to translate your military background, kind of, into what this should look like in the civilian world, but not really. It doesn't really do a good job. They say, hey, this is what the VA is, but then that's about it. You're kind of left on your own to kind of walk that VA kind of realm and figure that out for your claims and stuff. And like, I don't know. I mean, you're not wrong at saying that at least they try, but I don't know. Again, this is personal experiences. I'm not speaking for everybody that's transitioned, but again, like I really don't think it was more of really like a check in the box. But again, I know every post is different too, because it's every time they're run locally by certain individuals. So every post is different. So everybody has a different experience in those. But again, I think overall, they don't do a great job of setting us up for success once we get out.
Yeah, I think a lot of people. There's a lot of conversation in the veteran community outside of the active community, the active duty community, that they're trying to figure this out. What would success looks like? I mean, there are skill bridge programs. There are all kinds of programs where you can do work studies while you're still in. And go work in a company for a little while and then come back and finish your time and get out. And hopefully you have a job or whatever. But, they're missing the mark. But I have a question that's kind of burning that I'd like to ask it. So you took a break from podcasting, personal issues, got that. Don't need to go into that. But when you came back, you kind of cut half of that off. And you decided to go strictly to the mental health realm. I'm just curious, during that time that you weren't doing the podcasting, there must have been some internal dialogue. What did you learn, or what did you discover that made you want to stick to one lane? I mean, there must have been a lesson there somewhere.
Yeah, I think a lot of it had to do with just really following my own journey through my kind of downward fall, if you would. I wouldn't say I hit rock bottom completely, but it wasn't a great spot for me to be in. But I think kind of working through that and asking for help and being honest with myself and accepting that there was something going on with me. I think that helped me out a lot. And then since then, I've had a few friends, and friends, spouses that also serve that ended up taking their life, and I just felt like there weren't enough people talking about and having the real conversation around mental health.
Yeah,
because again, there's still the stigma there. People. I don't know if they're afraid or if they're embarrassed or what. For me, it was I was embarrassed to talk about it. For me, it was an embarrassment thing. Like I thought people would look at me as a lesser person or a lesser man because of the issues or the things that I was going through. But again, for me, having that vulnerability I've turned that into a strength. Right. Like that vulnerability is now a strength for me.
Yeah.
It allows me to identify a lot more things, not just like my own personal well-being, but it allows me to help teach my kids how to process things and how to respond to certain things as well, you know? Um, and I just want to be able to share that and hopefully give somebody some peace and allow them or show them that it's okay to talk about whatever you have going on. And even especially the ones who think they're going at it alone. They're not. Like, you're not alone in anything that you're going through. We've all been through something, you know, and we all have a story to share. We can it and my thing was, if I help one person or get through to one person or give some advice that saves one person, that's all that matters to me, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. No, that's real. That is real. And I think that, there are some good conversations going on about this, but there always needs to be more. I mean, let's look at what happened in the last week and a half. The veteran community is actually a pretty powerful group of people. What was going on with the VA and the rating
Yep.
schedule and all that other stuff. I mean, my goodness, that was overturned in, I think, 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
That was a quick turnaround. I was actually really surprised that how quickly the VA walked back on that one, honestly. One, I was surprised that they actually made that decision to do those things and to change how they were going to evaluate ratings and stuff. But I've become networked with a couple different veteran communities online, and LinkedIn, on Facebook, and it was like wildfire. It was going everywhere in every direction. Everybody was like, "Hey, please share this. Please comment on this. Go here, make a public comment, like this and that." And yeah, I mean, I will definitely say the veteran community has really stepped it up in the last few years. I think like the online presence of the veteran community has really stepped up a lot in the last few years, in my opinion, and given us a voice that we necessarily wouldn't have had 2-3 years ago.
True.
Right.
True.
Because you would have to find your certain onesies and twosies or certain organizations that would be the voice for the veteran community. But now you have so many more involved, especially different podcasts, different Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, whatever the case may be. Like, there's so many more people involved these days than there used to be 2-3 years ago.
Yep. That's 100% true. So say you're a part of a group. I mean, most of your conversations, I know you've taken a break and you've just gotten started again, but most of your conversations for your podcast, even dating back to the time that you were in service still, they were around mental health. Have you gotten a feel of what a sign for somebody who's struggling but won't say it out loud? Because when a veteran is struggling through some stuff, we do a very good job hiding it to most of the world. What's a sign that somebody would look for if a friend of theirs is a veteran and they're having a hard time?
I think probably one of the biggest ones that really kind of stands out to me is they start pulling away and secluding themselves. I just had a friend recently, it's either right around Christmas or right after the New Year holiday, and I noticed they hadn't been on Facebook making any posts in 3-4 days. And I was like, what is going on? Like, they're usually posting like 3 or 4 times a day, let alone skipping 4 days. Right. And then a group that I stay connected with from my time in service that I deployed to Afghanistan with, had a message come out and says, "Hey, somebody needs to check on this, on this guy. He hasn't been online for a while. Nobody's heard from him." And I literally just talked to him maybe 3 days before I noticed that he kind of went radio silent on us. Week went by. Come to find out, he had checked himself in to a hospital. Luckily, he checked himself into a hospital. But there was a time because I finally got to talk to him, and there was a time that he said that it was very close, that it was about to be really bad, without getting into any detail. But but luckily the law enforcement that showed up were also veterans. So having that immediate kind of first responder also being a veteran, I think helped him out a lot. But again, like what I noticed from his situation is he went radio silent, like out of the blue. Went from posting 3 to 4 times a day to not posting anything. And when you see extreme shifts in behavior, that is probably the most prominent tell, in my opinion. I'm not a professional. I'm not a mental health professional, but again, this is my personal opinion and what I have seen with friends of mine and friends and family members of friends. And like, it's that extreme shift in how they are acting, right? Whether it be they're starting to sell off stuff that they normally would have taken pride in having, or like I said, going radio silent on social media when you know for a fact they're a social butterfly and they're posting all the time about everything.
Yeah. That's a good point. That's actually a good leadership lesson for anybody. Say you're in an organization, oftentimes what happens when somebody starts having extreme changes of behavior is you go straight to the negative.
Yeah.
And you can't do that. Veteran or not, if somebody's withdrawing or showing up late every day and they've been working there for a while and that's not their normal behavior, and instead of writing them up, pull them into the office. Say, what the heck is really going on? Guess what? We got to get away from the whole organizational aspect of things and get back to being human beings and have a conversation about what's actually going wrong, instead of just taking somebody and smacking at them to punish them for doing the wrong thing. Because usually there's a root cause there. And if you're not big into root cause analysis, it's going and doing the why thing until you figure out what's causing the problem, not just looking at the surface and saying you're a problem for doing this. And I think that's a lesson in all of our lives, whether we have kids or whether we're in a senior leadership position at work, or if we have our own business with employees, or if we're part of a friend group. If you're not paying attention to changes in behavior, you're doing everybody around you a disservice.
No, you're absolutely right. And you're right, because if you're not understanding how the people around you, whether that be in your personal life or your professional life, if you don't understand how they operate and what their normal looks like on a daily basis, you're never going to know when something's going wrong, right?
Really not.
I mean, you could take that from being in the military and saying, "Hey, I noticed you're a little off today. You're not as cheerful as you normally are," or, "Hey, you seem a little hungover. This isn't like you," right? Like, what's going on with you? That also translates into the corporate world out after service as well. So, like, understanding, I will say it's a little harder now that a lot of folks are working remotely. So, like, for me, I'm 100% remote work, right? I do IT work out in the civilian world. I'm 100% remote. I work from home. So I have a lot of calls, like virtual calls. So, but that doesn't take that responsibility away from you as a leader to not know what those signs still look like for people. Do they sound like they aren't making decisions correctly? Are they not thinking properly like they normally would? Are they usually making really crisp and sound judgment calls, and then all of a sudden one day they seem a little slower? They sound a little more jumbled in their speech when you're talking to them, So like it's those things. Like, and again, like you said, that's leadership 101, in my opinion, is understanding the people around you and what their normal looks like.
Well, that's for us. Unfortunately, in the civilian world, oftentimes people want you to stay out of their business, but that doesn't mean that doesn't mean you do it, right? I mean, you still get to know. You don't have to know what's going on at home to know who they are when they're performing their duties. And you're right, virtual adds a complexity to it, but it doesn't completely change it. I mean, we can still keep in contact with the people that work with us and for us. It just doesn't look the same. I mean, you can't walk the factory floor every day or, if you're an IT guy like you are, go look left and right and walk around the room and just chat with your staff like you could when you were on active duty. That just doesn't work that way. But you can still, have a daily conversation, even whether it's virtual like this, or maybe it's picking up one of these and just saying, "Hey, Johnny, how you doing today, man? I just wanted to, I don't really need anything from you. I just wanted to see how things were going because I haven't talked to you in a couple of days," or something like just get to know people. Go back to the basics. Treat people like people, not as a part of your machine that you need to make your team operate smoothly. But I do have one more question since we're at the 30 minute mark before we kind of conclude things here. And since your show and your passion lies in helping people with their mental health stuff and talking about it and raising awareness for it, if there is a person or a veteran who is walking around saying, "I'm fine," but they're not, what would you say to those people right now from here that could be very beneficial to them?
I want them to know that it's okay to not be okay, and that they're not alone in whatever struggles that they're going through. Even if they think they're a million miles away from somebody who can relate, they're not. We might not have had the same experiences or same background or did the same things while in service, but I can almost guarantee you that there's somebody out there who is going through or thinking the exact same thing you are. And that's okay. I think that's probably the biggest thing is getting our mindset out of being honest and talking about mental health as a weakness and using it as a strength for the masses to make each other better.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself, sir. Good job. No, thank you for being a guest on the show today. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, before we exit the show completely, I want to remind everybody to go on Amazon. Just read the description in there and see if it's for you. Just go to Amazon.com. Speak up, show up, lead. It's my story of grit, growth, and leadership from the ground up. And it's the leadership lessons. It's not a woe is me story. Although I did grow up in poverty, although I did join the military, I did go to war, I did leave the military and have some hard times. And it's a pain in the ass to start a business. So that stuff's in there too. But if that stuff interests you, go on there, check it out. Just read the description and see if it's for you. If you like it, buy it. Let me know what you think. John, thanks again for being a guest. For everybody who's in the audience, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to wherever you're seeing this, even if it's much later on Spotify or any of those other places. And don't forget to leave a comment below and let me know what you think of what's going on. Or if you want to be connected to John, I'd be happy to make that happen. I'm sure he would appreciate it too. We are in the business. We're in the business here of helping people through adversity. I'm a leadership coach. John has a podcast where he's talking to people about the hard stuff. We're trying to help. So if you want to join the community, be a part of the community. I'll make sure I make the connection. And thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you next time.